corruption, it's perversion masquerading under the guise of renewal.
Today they've degenerated into a social club for bored millionaires and celebrities who use its meetings as an excuse to indulge their jaded sexual appetites.
Mom, do you really want to go and live in that hotel for the winter?
Sure I do. It'll be lots of fun.
What have you done to it? What have you done to its eyes?
He has his father's eyes.
Hello, uncensored cinephile fans, and welcome to the review of The Wicker Man, the original film, not the new one with Nick Cage.
Yes, the original 1973 version of the film.
Yes, the good one, the really good one.
I'm very excited to do this episode with you.
Yes, she's so excited she made me wear her witch's hat.
And I'm wearing my Mayday Queen flower crown. So, yeah, it looks good. What do you think?
It looks like you came straight from Summer Isle.
Well, yeah, maybe. It's the Scottish Isle, so I'm Scottish, so maybe who knows.
And you have a witch's hat.
Yeah, but I didn't bring that with me from there. We brought that in Salem last year. Yeah, spooky.
Very spooky.
So yeah.
And it's Halloween season.
It is Halloween. Yeah, I've got my little pumpkin earrings in as well, people. Look.
Yep. Very nice.
Thank you very much.
And we are going to review other films people suggested in the comments for our last premiere that we did, but we wanted to do The Wicker Man as well because we saw it recently and we thought, why not? Let's do The Wicker Man. It's a great film.
It's very good. It's full of symbolism and it's fascinating to sort of like go into like the paganism and the sort of all the different avenues that you can go down in terms of like the founding people of Wicca and paganism and the modern day equivalent of it. So I just found it fascinating when I was sort of like going down a rabbit hole of all this sort of stuff, and I spent like 2 days researching it. So I'm very eager to.
And during Halloween, Samhain, it's actually kind of on topic, all these things, right?
Yes.
Because that is a very, like druidic, like ritualistic thing, right? So, like, this is not a Christian thing, right? These comes from these more, like, traditions, right? So
yeah, the Celtic paganism.
Yes.
So.
All right, so you want to get into the movie? Should we start with the movie and then you can break down these interesting things you found?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to give like a full in-depth like plot summary. I'm hoping at most, I mean, it's not really like there's much of a plot anyway. It's just a Sergeant Neil Howie who gets called to this mysterious island of Summer Isle. Off the coast of Scotland. He's received a letter to say that there's a girl that's gone missing, Rowan Morrison, and he's starts off sort of pleasant in a way. You know, the locals seem eccentric. They seem mostly harmless.
But I mean, they are kind of like, you can't come on the island.
Yes.
And then once they let him on, they're like clearly all lying to him.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, exactly. There's some from the onset. It's a bit off in terms of their behaviour and their sort of responses and everything. But we're just sort of going along with him, and he starts investigating into this missing girl, who they say does. First off, they deny that she exists, and then they admit that she does exist.
Yes.
But yeah, it's not like it's very plot heavy. It's like someone I read a review said that it was like more like a Agatha Christie sort of episode. You know, it's very like basic whodunit, but it's not really about whodunit because there is no body, there is no murder that's taken place. It's just it's kind of like a campy sort of thing in lots of ways, but the fact that the locals, the islanders, are so seem so harmless is what makes them harmful.
Yeah, it's like a great depiction of a cult, because most cults seem so harmless.
Yes, exactly.
And then
they
that gets you off
in.
guard, right?
Yeah, they lure you in that way. And I think this is a great movie in terms of the depiction of cult mentality.
Yeah.
And mob rule in a way, because they all sort of like, they're a close community, and you get the sense that they all have to go along with the religious beliefs and practices. And if anybody questions it, there is nowhere for them to run. You know, like later on, how he tries to escape, you know, the island, and he literally can't. So but of course, like this, automatically there's like strange things that don't add up. So he goes to see the mother of the missing girl, and she runs a local post office, and there's lots of hair symbolism. We see like lots of chocolate hairs, and they're not like chocolate rabbits that you have at Easter. They're like full on bigger than a rabbit. They're like a hare. And of course, like the hair symbolism, we've discussed it in previously with the witch. And the hair is this sort of like symbolic creature, which is supposed to be like, you know, representing abundance and prosperity and good fortune, but it's also connected to the other world, as in like the underworld. And people see it as like a shape-shifting creature. And the Celtics, the pagans, held it in such like revere that they didn't actually eat hares. Which is interesting. Really? Yeah, which is what I found.
So like the Hindus wouldn't eat cows, but the Celtics wouldn't eat hares.
Right.
It's interesting to me too, because like it's in those books where if you make like I forget which book it is, like one of these Freemasonic books, but if you make like the sign of the hare, and then you make it like against a wall,
right,
the shadow depicts like Satan, basically.
Oh, like I always thought that was like fun that you did when you were a little kid with like doing the stuff with the shadow
figures. Yeah, the hair one, but, like when you do it, like it depicts like the same like type thing.
Oh, it kind of does, doesn't it? That's very interesting. And I think the film like has a lot of hair symbolism in the movie. I mean, in terms of like how he goes to talk to the missing girl's mother, she says that she's only got one girl, and when he goes to sort of like talk to this little girl, she's drawing a picture of a hare, which he helps her with. Actually starts, you know, it's a deliberate police tactic, like, you know, they try and talk to children, they get involved in what activity they might be doing, and he says he asks her what's happened to Rowan, and she says, oh, she's turned into a hare. And then we find later when he digs up Rowan's coffin that there's a hare in there. Yeah,
and remember, so when the cop finds Rowan finally, right? Yes. Where is she?
She is in a cave.
Not in a cave. She's outside the cave.
Oh, she's outside the cave, yes.
Right? But like a hare, she runs into the cave to escape the predator, right?
Yeah. But she, like, luring him in.
Yeah.
Did I do it right?
You did it beautifully! See her, little Rowan.
And I think that's interesting is the fact that a lot of the masks that we see at the end of the film that the islanders wear are like reoccurring animal symbols that are associated with the occult and paganism and that sort of thing. So we have like the bull, the sort of the stag head, we have the goat, and all of the, you know, we've discussed goats before in The Witch, but obviously the goat is known for its fertility, for being rowdy.
Oh, really?
So I think that's kind of interesting because the whole movie is centered around fertility and rebirth, and the locals on the island are very promiscuous.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of naked people in this movie.
They're having a really good time.
They are having a really good time.
And like there's that whole scene where
I was gonna say the seduction scene.
The seduction scene.
Yeah. So Howie goes.
Our beta male cop.
Yeah, there's only one real place where he can stay on the island, which is an inn called the Green Man. I'll go back to that in a second to talk about the legend of the Green Man, which is very interesting. But he's greeted by the landlord and the landlord's daughter, played by Britt Ekelund. I think was she a Bond girl?
I don't know. She's probably like an 8. Right? Like she's I mean, Bianca's a 10.
No,
if they had brought like Bianca in, the guy would have not been able to resist.
No,
but they only had like an 8. So.
Right. Yeah, okay, and definitely not a 10. But yeah. Anyway, she's very pretty, very attractive, and it's such a weird sort of like the scenes with her are very weird, like the singing and the dancing with the people in the pub, like they're all sort of like lusting after her and like basically like it's all very sort of sexually charged and everything. It's like a really uncomfortable situation, and I've read lots of people say that who've been very unsympathetic towards the character of Howie.
Okay.
And like basically called him a prude and everything, and
well, I mean, if you really think about it, if he had not been such a prude and just banged the 8, right? That was like lusting over him. She was like humping the wall. Okay.
Yeah.
If he had just done that, like, which would have been easy, all he had to do was walk into her bedroom, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He would have not have been burned in the Wicker Man.
But I think it's like
So the lesson of the story is No, I'm just kidding.
Short episode.
That
was a really short episode.
This is like the only horror movie where having sex would have saved you, I think.
Yeah.
Every other horror movie you'd get killed for this.
Yeah, like the rules from Scream,
yeah,
basically. Yeah. No, I think it's a bit unfair to say that, because it's like everyone's like saying he's standoffish and, you know, he's prejudiced against like he's the outsider, and he's like not very,
yeah, well, I mean, he's just super based.
He's dismissive of like he's very closed-minded, and I think, but if you were
he's Christian, and he's on an island full of pagan witches and like
I was thinking,
cult
like,
members.
Even if you are like very open-minded, if you were in that situation and you're there to do a job, which is to find a missing girl, and you're a police officer, you have a sense of duty to your role as a police officer to do that. And I think as well, it's like,
well, wait a second. But
if you were seeing people, like naked people dancing through the flames and humping each other and all this sort of stuff, you're not going to be like, oh, that's okay, it's just their beliefs, I'm just going to like ignore it. You're going to be like, this is really weird and disturbing, and they're doing it like openly.
Yeah.
And I think something that I watched addressed this, and was actually and made me realise that like often when cults, like children are exploited, and this is what is the cult. It is a cult on in the movie, in the Wicker Man, and the fact that the adults are doing all of this and very sexually open, they're doing it in front of the children, which makes me worried, like what else is going on the island.
Yeah, of course. Like, it's all like, so, and like,
I don't
mean, you think they care about the age of consent on an island where they're like having orgies in the middle of the field?
It's all very strange, right?
Right?
So I think like everybody's saying like, oh, Howie is like it's just about free love and expression. He should be, it's like,
wait a second. They burned a man alive with a bunch of livestock and a giant
I'm
wicker
upset
statue.
about the fact that they had like
while
deers
like
and,
singing and
like
dancing,
pigs and sheep. I was like, oh no, not the piggies.
Not the piggies. They were like happy and singing and dancing while do it like sacrificing like living creatures. Like, that's crazy.
So I feel like the way that people have been like
this is like what Christianity stopped, because like in huge parts of the world there were all these like crazy cultures that were doing this human sacrifice nonsense, right?
Yeah, the Phoenicians.
And then when Christianity came along, that was like the end of it.
Yeah.
And there's even a story in the Bible about Abraham like sacrificing his only son, and then at the last moment God's like, no, don't actually sacrifice yourself.
Whoa, I was kidding. There was a joke. You went too far.
Yeah, but like in the pagan Bible it's like, do it. And it's like, wait, actually do it? It's like, yes, actually do it. There is no
Put it in and maybe make a big Wicker Man and do it.
Make a big Wicker Man and do it. Like,
so yeah.
So like that practice like has gone out of like tradition because of the rise of Christianity, mainly.
Yeah, but I think it's really interesting in that sort of scene that we have where Willow is trying to, her name's Willow, the landlord's daughter is trying to seduce Howie.
Yes.
Her song that she sings. So I don't know if you knew the lyrics.
He who
So I wanted to sort of like, because it's like, do you know what? In a way, it reminds me very much of like the music from Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
Like that sort of folky, sort of like, it seems very sort of like nice on the surface, but when you sort of like actually read the words,
you're like, oh, this is creepy.
Yeah. So she's like saying that. The first verse is rather nice. It's like, the things I'll give to you by stroke as gentle as a feather. I'll catch the rainbow from the sky and tie the ends together.
Okay.
And then it ends with how a maiden can milk a bull and every stroke a bucketful. Basically saying like, hey, I want to stroke you and milk you.
Because, a bowl doesn't have milk.
Yeah. So it's like, it seems really like innocent at first. I'm like, oh, it's nice. She's singing about rainbows and
she's
stuff.
not singing about milking a cow.
Yeah,
sure.
So, but there's so many. The music in the film is so good. I think it's by a composer called Paul Giovoni, and he like wrote most of the songs that we see. So we have like another one was the Maypole song.
Oh yeah.
Which is like the scene sort of like in the next day where
in the woods there grew a tree, and a fine, fine tree was he. And on that tree there was a limb, and on that limb there was a branch, and on that branch there was a nest, and in that nest there was an egg, and in that egg there was a bird, and from that bird a feather came, and of that feather was a bed. And on that bed there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, and from that man there was a seed, and from that seed there was a boy, and from that boy there was a man, and for that man there was a grave, and from that grave there grew a tree.
Howie decides to go to the school to investigate whether the girl, attended school on the island, and he passes. It's all boys who are going around the maypole, and I think you've spoke about what the maypole actually is representing, because in the film they say one thing, but you think it's more.
I've heard other interpretations.
Yeah, you have a different interpretation. But I think before we sort of get on to that, I just wanted to go through the song with you, because again, it sort of like reinforces this weird, disturbing idea that children are being sexually exploited on the island. So the song lyrics say, and on that bed there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, and from that man there was a seed. So, I think that's really strange that they say a man, but they say a girl instead of a woman.
Wow, yeah.
So, but.
And on that bed there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, and from that man there was a seed, and from that seed there was a boy.
Yeah, that's pretty much like.
Yeah.
When you hear the lyrics itself. Like, yeah, I mean, they're pretty much saying, on that man there was a... Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah, so, you don't really pick up on this when you're watching the movie, I think, because the music is so, like, cheerful and upbeat, and it, like, goes against the typical horror movie.
Yeah, but the kids are, like, so programmed, right?
Right, they are.
Like, the children are super programmed, and, like, the other interesting thing is, like, in the classroom... when they showed like the board of what they were covering for subjects, it was it was like the occult.
It's like the hagstone and
it was like
all different stones.
Like we're doing like occult studies. Like there was no like math or history. No. It was just like this is the Seeker Stone, like some nonsense.
And the children are like really weird. Like I think the like the most weird moment for me was when he lifts up the lid to the desk and there's a beetle going around the little needle. And it's like representing him. He is that beetle. He's stuck going around in this little cycle where he can't, he's basically being trapped there, and he's unable.
They probably knew he was going to open the desk.
Yeah,
and
then the girl is just like giggling away.
Because they made it so obvious that there was like a missing...
Yeah, like...
It was like the middle desk.
They
could have just made it like...
It's...
They could have moved it to like the back of the classroom.
They were trying to hide anything, but they're not.
They were making it so obvious.
Yeah, they might as well have had a big sign.
Like, child missing here.
Yeah.
But any detective worth their salt would pick up on that, like, immediately.
But he seems to be, like, airing his superiority and his, like, authority over the people.
Yeah, he's a cop.
Yeah, and I think, but his pride is ultimately his downfall. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But you said about the maypole, so of course I've done some research into maypoles, and I just can't seem to get any like actual solid reason as to why people dance around a maypole. They like the best. It's not even the best interpretation, but the one that people most go with is the fact that it's something. It's like why they decorate it is because it looks good. Something stupid like that. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like it has to be more symbolic than the fact that it was like, they wanted to put decorations on something, so they made a pole. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, but when you said your, like, reading of it, I was like, yeah. That's, like, the most logical thing that I can think of. So, do you want to go into
basically, that? Like, what... I forget which, like, YouTuber showed this, but... What they showed was, like, basically the maypole in, like, some countries, especially, they have people descend from the, like, top of it down to the earth. From the top, so like obviously it represents like the male generative principle, like the phallus symbol, and then like the angels like come out of the top of it, right, and then down to earth, right. So it's like representing the fall of the angels, right, down to earth from the center of the like male generative principle, which would be like God or like the heavens, right. So like. From where the angels were created down to earth is what that maypole represents, basically. And each person at the end of, like, the pole at the bottom is, like, an angel on earth, right? So, like, when they're dancing around and circling around, like, they're, like, pretending they're, like, the fallen angels on earth, right? Very paganistic type stuff, basically.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
And that's why, like, when you see it in the movie, like, you're like, oh, wow, they're doing that, like, it's interesting. And then, like, soon you see them having a big orgy and, like, other things that just kind of, like, certify, like, what you're looking at is... The interesting thing to me, another one of these things is, like, you know how it's an island?
Yes.
And, like, a lot of these, like, elites have been caught with islands, right?
Right. What is it? Yeah.
Like...
Weird, isn't it?
We don't need to say the names of the islands,
No,
but there's been a lot of, like, islands with
I just feel like if
sex issues.
If you get invited to a party on an island, I really wouldn't go.
Yeah.
I'd be very wary of going.
Especially islands with, like, pagan type temples on them.
Yeah, we've seen that. And, like, actually gone by that. It's, like, really creepy.
Yeah.
But I think... Yeah, what's interesting about this island, Summer Isle, is when we're, like, introduced to Lord Summer Isle. Mm-hmm. And I really, I love the fact that it's Christopher Lee in this role.
He does a really good job.
Yeah,
whoever the actor is, he's, like, perfect.
He's Dracula from the old Dracula movies, you know?
Okay, I don't even know if I've seen those, so...
Okay, but he's, like, known for playing, like, you know, the obvious villain.
Okay.
But here, it's almost like he's playing, like, against type in that way. Like, he's very charismatic and open, and it seems like a very, like, almost like an ordinary guy. And that's what I think is interesting, is like most cult leaders come across this way. And he's like telling Howie about how it was his grandfather or great-grandfather who, during the Victorian times, that came to the island and, you know, used science and technology to sort of regenerate, or like, I don't know, sort of, he did something to the soil to make it fertile.
Mm-hmm.
So is it science or is it magic that he used? I think it's just interesting that it's like this, it's from the Victorian era, and you had, like, during this time you had like the interest in occultism sort of emerge.
Yeah.
And when I was researching, I found that the screenwriter for the film, Anthony Schaefer, and the director, Robin Hardy, were influenced by James Fraser's The Golden Bough. Bough, I think, Bough, which was like a book published in 1890 about mythology and religion. And also I believe they sort of like spoke about the likes of Gerald Gardner, who was the creator of Wicker, and a naturist, so basically a person who likes to go around in a nude. You know, like the people on Summer Isle, they don't seem to like to wear clothes, but you know, this Gerald Gardner was known for reviving the pagan faith in the UK during the 50s and 60s, and he borrowed ideas from the Freemasons and Aleister Crowley. He was good friends with Crowley.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. No, it gets even crazier. He was also friends with Cecil Williamson. Cecil Williamson, who was a neo-pagan warlock.
Nice.
And was the founder of Witchcraft Research Center, which was a part of the MI6 war against the Nazis. Which I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know that this was true, that the Nazis had like interests in the occult. I didn't know that there was like the MI6 had like their own sort of...
Yeah, Aleister Crowley has
like,
connections to MI6
yeah,
too.
I didn't know that they had their own like
and then
task
like in
force
America
to take on the Nazis occult.
Yeah, like
people.
in America, like what is it, the Church of Satan or whatever was founded by Michael Aquino, who has like ties to Fourth Psychological Operations Group or something. I just you know,
yeah,
like
I find it interesting that all this sort of stuff, which is like depicted in the Wicker Man, the screenwriter is basically referring to stuff that, you know, is being discussed in popular culture at the time, this sort of rebirth and regeneration of like paganism, which was so popular, especially in the 1960s, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
with all the drugs and the other stuff going on.
like free-loving hippiness of it.
Hippies.
Goddamn hippies.
How'd you escape Cartman's basement from the last episode?
Yeah, what's interesting is that, to me, is the fact that there's like all these strange ties to Crowley.
Yeah.
It all comes back to it. So I was like, oh, the moment I saw his name, I was like, oh, okay. That's really interesting. And we've discussed him before.
Yes, he's had a huge effect on Hollywood and other
Definitely.
things.
So, yeah, I just
and music and things of that nature.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, and I think it's interesting that Lord Summer Isle is kind of gives off that vibe. Do you know what I mean? Like the cult leader type of vibe,
mm-hmm.
where he like seems very... He doesn't seem like the rest of the people. Like, it's almost like, how much of it does he believe in? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wanted to propose that question to you. Do you think he actually believes what...
The head guy?
Yeah.
The guy running the ritual and all that? No, I think he just is trying to, like,
he's like,
use it to control everybody.
You think
like
he's
you
grifting?
said, like he said, he brought the island back through science and technology. I think that was actually the truth. And, like, he does something to, like, try to bring the crops back.
Yeah.
But, like, he loves being the cult leader. And he loves, like, that. So, like, he was just, like, using it as an excuse to do that.
Yeah.
I really think that, like, he knows exactly what's going on. And I highly doubt he believes that the crops are going to be brought back by a human sacrifice.
I think what is really chilling in the movie is the moment where Howie turns to him and he's like, basically says, like, if this doesn't work, then the people are going to turn on you.
Yeah.
Right? It just goes to, like, show how, like, his whole reign is just like this weak tower of cards. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's about to fall apart at any second. And I think that's when you see, like, the look of fear on Lord Summerisle's face. Like, he's like the first time that he shows, like, genuine, like, he breaks character. He like literally breaks character in that moment. He's like genuinely fearful for his own life because he knows that the people will turn on him.
Yeah, I'd be like planning my escape at that point if I was Lord Summer Island, you know.
But I think what's interesting is when he discusses his grandfather and shows a portrait of his grandfather. The island is known for its apples.
Yeah. Of course, the apple, right?
There's
another
that apple
occult symbol,
right? There's an apple in the portrait.
Like, I was just gonna say that, like, why do you do you think that they want to be
like
naked because that's like how they were in the Garden of Eden,
right?
Yeah. So, like, is that like why the occult likes being naked so much? Is it because like they like apples too?
Yeah, there's
right?
always
like
the weird thing about it's Halloween soon, bobbing for apples.
Yeah.
Right?
Because, like, they were in the garden, and then, if you think about it from their perspective as Luciferians, they think they were imprisoned in the Garden of Eden, and that they were set free knowing good and evil, but then they were punished, right?
Yeah.
So, like, to them, wouldn't being naked be a bad thing? Because then they... Like, once they learned, they started dressing themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, why would they want to be naked? I don't...
Well,
maybe...
he makes a good point. You can't jump through fire with clothes on.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, like, clothes catch on fire.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's... he makes a good observation.
Valid point.
Yeah.
On the clothes catching on fire thing?
Yeah, but you are right. It is a bit weird. There is, like, this obsession with being naked. But maybe that's because, like... I don't know. You're, like, more vulnerable when you're naked.
Like,
so
all their Hollywood
open.
Puppets and stuff.
You're more open to be...
I don't know.
Like, taken over or something. Maybe clothes act like a barrier or something. Or you feel like they act like a barrier.
Yeah.
Because you're covered. I don't know, but I mean, talking about clothes in the movie and outfits, I just thought was really, going back to Lord Summerisle at the end of the movie, how he's dressed he's leading the parade to the beach, and he's dressed like very, like, it's like womanly, isn't it? He's got the long hair and he's like got a sort of like a smock on, like a purple dress. He's wearing makeup. I think that he's supposed to represent a pagan god called Epona. That's Epona, which is the goddess of fertility. She's also the protector of horses, ponies, donkeys, and mules.
Okay.
And now that's what I don't know whether he's meant to be representing that, but the reason I say that is that she's often depicted with a sickle, and in his hand he has a sickle.
Oh, okay.
And I just think it's interesting that he's got the long, flowing hair.
Aren't there other gods though? Like, isn't Saturn commonly depicted with a sickle or something?
Yeah, maybe. I think it's obviously like a lot of the ancient gods were sort of a mixture between male and female, weren't they?
Yeah.
So you have like the Egyptian gods, you have often, with male and female parts. So, but I think it's just interesting that you see this depiction of this blending of the two genders happening.
Yeah.
And there's also we've mentioned all the strange masks that the people are wearing, but I thought was kind of disturbing to me was the hobby horse. I don't know about that weird thing that it's like a horse and like half horse, half man. That's sort of like, you got the punch, which Howie is dressed up as the fool.
Yep.
Which, is quite funny because he's been taken for a fool, and then you got this weird hobby horse creature. It's all like very disturbing stuff. It looks like, at first it kind of looks campy and like really cheap. I don't know. You know what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but definitely thought I would point out that I don't know whether you think there's any more to that about their costumes in the film.
I mean, I think they're symbolic, obviously, like the jester and these various things that made people wear. Like, they're definitely representing different symbols on their way to, like, the end there. So, yeah. I mean, I do think there is more to that, yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, I've wanted to talk to you about names now.
Okay, yeah, let's hear the names. I thought this was fairly interesting.
Thank you. First off, it's like we've mentioned before, like the reason that certain screenwriters and writers choose names. Like, it's not just because they're like, oh, it's a pick. We're just gonna pick a random name. There's like significance in terms of like people's names, and first glance you wouldn't think there would be anything to the names featured in The Wicker Man, but I was like, no, I just feel like there's more to it. So anyway,
for sure.
Neil Howie is our main character, and I was like, Howie, what's that? That's spelled Howie, and it's a pet form of How, which is a variant on the name Hugh. That's Hugh, and that's a boy's name of British origin, which means soul, mind, and intellect. And then Neil means champion, so he's the champion soul.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah,
so,
champion soul.
Yeah, which is like very ironic. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Because, well, technically, from a Christian perspective, he does win in the end.
Yes.
Because he goes to heaven.
Yeah, he's basically a martyr.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because Samael also says, oh, you're going to get a martyr's death. Like, And I think we'll talk about it in a second, but when we get to Rowan. But we've mentioned, like, the children possibly being sexually assaulted and abused. If in the film, Lord Samael hasn't alludes to the fact that they would sacrifice a child, and I think if it if Howie had been corrupted and had slept with the landlord's daughter, Willow, who would have been the one to be sacrificed, and I think it would have been the child.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Yeah,
but she's not a I don't think she's a champion soul because she's corrupted.
No, so they would have risked a worse harvest, right? Because they would have had to have sacrificed not the ideal.
Yeah, so.
As they explained to him earlier, they said, "Oh, a child sacrifice is okay, but adult male innocent sacrifice is better."
Yeah.
They literally did say they would sacrifice Rowan
so it's like,
if they didn't have him to sacrifice.
I feel like people don't really... That's the real horror of the movie. It's like people are not really picking up on that. It's like almost like...
Yeah, they were totally prepared to sacrifice a small child.
Yeah.
Because the harvest didn't go well.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Anyway, Rowan Morrison, I think the name...
But how dare Howie look at these people and think down of them?
I know, they're just fun, free-loving hippies.
They're fun
they're
pagans,
like the true
guys.
knot. You know, they're just like the true knot. They're
celebrating
fun.
a religion that's like more ancient and true than Christianity. How could you possibly say these things?
The Celtic day began on what we now consider the eve of the previous day. So with the rising of the moon on October 31st, the great festival of Samhain began. Samhain was a strange time. The old year was dying and the new year was yet to be born. Somehow suspended or outside time, it was a transition of great vulnerability and danger. All natural laws fell away, and the barrier between the worlds dissolved. Mortals could enter the world beyond, and otherworld spirits roamed among the living. Huge bonfires are lit on the hills to ward off evil spirits, while the Lord of the Dead leads the souls of the departed to the otherworld. To ensure a safe journey, offerings and sacrifices are made. Sacred to the sun god, horses are sacrificed, and so are humans. People, mostly criminals, are placed in an enormous wicker cage shaped like an animal or giant. The druids set fire to the cage, and the people burned to death. Purified by fire, the souls of the sacrificed make a pleasing gift to the Lord of the Dead. Each family then takes fire from the druid's sacred blaze back to the village to rekindle their hearts.
Yeah.
Well, what's a little human sacrifice between friends?
Exactly. I think so. The girl who has gone missing is called Rowan, and I was like, "Oh, what's Rowan? That's interesting." Well, it's a tree that's thought to be to protect you against witchcraft and enchantment, and basically, I think her whole name is like a trick to lure him in, or under false pretenses.
Yeah.
Like, she's meant to be seen as, like, innocent, as a victim, and, like, the MacGuffin, I guess, to sort of lure him into this herodom, you know? Yeah. So
if he could just get to her, he could be saved from the witches and the witchcraft, but he can't quite get there, right?
But all of the women's names in the film are either plants or trees.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I've mentioned Willow, but there's also Rose and Daisy.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So all of the women have like
plant names.
Plant names. And it's interesting as well that lots of the women are blonde.
Mm.
And I kind of discussed that in my article that maybe you're linked to.
Yep.
I wrote a review about
I'll put it on the screen.
Thank you. I said that there's like a strange thing, strange history of blonde women being seen as like seducers. And not to be trusted. And I think
when we all know it's really redheads that are the seducers and not to be trusted.
Yeah.
Another Hollywood lie debunked.
Oh no! No, come on. Let's think about it. We've seen witches being represented with blonde hair.
Yeah, lots of witches have blonde hair.
Right, so, you know.
I think even Sabrina the Witch had blonde hair.
Yes, the teenage witch. She had
teenage
blonde
witch,
hair.
yeah.
So it's interesting.
Facts.
Yeah. So anyway, that was what I had about names, but I just thought it was interesting. So I wanted to bring that up with people.
I like it. It was a very nice deep dive into the names.
I know.
Might have to clip that as like a name section for the podcast.
Yeah. And talking about names,
talking about names.
Talking about names. Back to the inn. And I said we'll go back there.
Yeah.
It's called the Green Man Inn.
The Green Man Inn.
And do you know what the Green Man is?
No, I don't.
It's if you go to the British Isles, you'll probably see a lot of pubs named the Green Man.
Okay.
It is a sort of I don't know. It's like a weird Celtic symbolism of like a cycle of life and death and rebirth. It's like this sort of folklore sort of creature. Which is often is like made out of trees. Like you'll see him he's seen in architecture quite a lot, so you see him on like churches and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Where it's usually like a face surrounded by foliage. Foliage.
Okay. Foliage?
Foliage. Plants.
Plants.
Twigs coming out of him. And it's really strange because I can't understand why it would be associated with churches. Right?
Well, the churches are all pagan. Like, the Vatican is extremely pagan, always has been.
Right, but it doesn't seem like it really should be there.
Like, why did they pick December 25th for Christmas when, like, that's like a pagan Saturnalia, like, thing? That's why they have some pagan god on a bunch of churches.
Yeah, so the motif has, like, many variations. So you often see it with, like, branches or vines sprouting from its mouth, nostrils, or other parts of the face.
Okay.
Which is, like, just... I don't know, I was just having this like horror film image of like someone becoming a green man and having like vines and branches coming out of their nostrils. That would be like horrible, but...
Sounds like those walking trees from Lord of the Rings, right?
But I think it's interesting.
Maybe that's where he got the idea from.
Yeah, the origins of it come from Roman art, from like leaf masks and stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the Romans in just a second because they're interesting. They do have a part to play in this, and also, so this might, for people interested in the Templars, they have churches in Jerusalem with the Green Man motifs on them as well.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I just think it's like all these things that you just see in the UK, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go down the pub, go down the Green Man, and you don't really pay any attention to it, but all of like this sort of stuff has like a much more deeper meaning.
Yeah, spiritual, occult.
Yeah. So I think it's just like when I saw it in the film, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. We also see like other things that are like we see all the time and we don't realize like they have a deeper meaning to them. So we have like the evil eye on the boat, on the little rowing boat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you probably know more about the evil eye, so if you want to sort of go into that quickly.
Okay, yeah. So the Eye of Horus, the evil eye, the Illuminati eye, right? Dun dun dun. Yeah, there it is.
I'm trying to do it. I'm wearing glasses.
You
so
see it
like
depicted. Yeah, you'll see like celebrities do that all the time.
Jay-Z.
You're like, why are they all doing this?
Oh wait, I shouldn't name names in case they come after us.
Yeah. Anyways, like you'll see it depicted in a bunch of movies, right? And then like in this, they clearly show the rowing boat. The front of it has one eye on the front of it, and they make sure to show it like multiple times, like enough so that at least subliminally to anyone that's not awake. Because if you're awake to these things, you're going to see it and be like, oh, there's the eye. Like, that's has no effect on me because you see it. But if you're not awake to these things and you're just watching the movie casually, it subliminally, like, affects you, right?
Yeah.
So,
I just find it really interesting. This film is just like littered with so many different symbols and stuff.
Yeah.
I think another thing that I really wanted to bring up was obviously the
sun setting.
Yeah.
As they were sitting there and doing that, there was like another one of these like occult symbols. Like how many different like pagan sites are set to like the equinox,
right? They
like
even have
sun
like
setting
the Stonehenge thing.
Yeah, like the ancients were obsessed with like worshiping the construct instead of worshiping that which created the construct.
Right, and there's the whole thing about the island's flag is a sun.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Which is then once again you're worshiping a star in space instead of worshiping like God himself. You're worshiping what God made instead of worshiping God, which is like very paganistic. That's like what they all do. They worship like the sun and the moon, which is why they're lunatics, right?
So I just wanted to sort of like discuss briefly about the May Queen, which is obviously what I'm supposed to be.
The May Queen.
And I can't really find too much about it. Like I don't know how long it dates back to. I don't know whether it's like more of a modern thing. Obviously we'll get into the Wicker Man celebrations and what that, you know, that the May Day celebrations, but the May Queen is often is a girl who like rides or walks in front of the parade for the May Day celebrations. And I think it's interesting that we don't see the May Queen in this movie walking in front of the parade. It's been replaced by Lord Summerisle, but he is
the human sacrifice.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's leading the human sacrifice.
Yeah,
he's like right there with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And the white gown is supposed to symbolize purity, crowned by flowers.
Yeah.
Right.
But the May Queen's probably a voluntary sacrifice, right? So that's why she would lead them out, whereas this time they had the other guy, and they knew he was at the front.
They do put him in white. But they don't crown him.
Yeah.
But I think there was something that I found by someone called Arthur George, who wrote a book called Mythology Matters. He says that there's an overlap between the pagan concept of the May Queen and the Virgin Mary. I don't know how much of that you believe.
What is the overlap?
It's basically just saying that the May Queen is meant to, it's like almost like a representation of the Virgin Mary.
Okay.
I don't know. I was like, that's a bit of a stretch, mate.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about the Virgin Mary is, do you know why the Virgin Mary started getting worshipped by Christianity? Because she was never a big part of, like, original Christianity.
No.
There was never, like, the Church of the Virgin Mary, like, type things. You know what I mean? She became, like, a prominent figure because of, I think his name was Saint Bernard de Clairvaux. And if I got that wrong, excuse me, but he was a religious guy that was at the head of I believe it was the Cistercian order, and that was like the religious order that was tied in with the Knights Templar.
Oh, right.
So they were the ones like that ran the monasteries and things, like the monks and things were all, and then he brought forward the worship of the Virgin Mary. He made that like popular in like Catholic like doctrine. So before that, it wasn't popular at all. She was just like a part of the. She was like this another figure in the Bible. No one would like worship her, and I think they did that because it's really supposed to be Isis, the goddess Isis.
Right.
So it was like secretly getting people to worship the goddess Isis and pretending that it was the Virgin Mary, which is why this like Knights Templar connected guy was like getting people to worship the Virgin Mary. It was a secretive way to make them worship Isis. So if they're saying that there's like a pagan connection there, that's probably why, because the Virgin Mary that the Catholics are worshiping is really Isis, which is like an Egyptian pagan goddess.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Anyway.
Rant done.
Well, I think it's really interesting that like May Day celebrations still happen. It's, you know, known as the origins of May Day is like Beltane.
Yeah.
Which was sort of like the 30th of April to the 1st of May. And, you know, it does, I mean, at first it sounds kind of like innocent, you know, you're driving the cattle through the flames of the bonfire, you know, to sort of like symbolize like the seasons changing and everything. And then you sort of like realize that it wasn't just like driving the animals through the fire, it was like driving the animals into the fire for sacrifice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I was like, is there really a Wicker Man? Like, was that a real thing? And according to Julius Caesar, it was real.
Oh, wow. Julius Caesar confirmed it and said that's pretty much a fact.
People have, like, modern day scholars, modern day historians.
Modern day scholar, here we go. Experts that live now.
Some experts.
And like, we totally know what was going on back when Julius Caesar lived.
They believe, like, it's like a smear job by the Romans to, like, try and justify their sort of, like,
pagan beliefs.
No, like to justify their sort of conquering of like that Gaul.
Of all these like
Brittany.
Barbarians.
Yeah.
That were Wicker Manning people.
But I mean, I don't know, because Julius Caesar. And there's two main sources. There's Julius Caesar and a Greek geography dude called Strato, I think, or Strabo.
Strabo,
the geography dude.
The geography dude. This is a geography dude. Strabo.
Strabo. They both gained their info on the Celts from someone called Posidonius.
Yeah, the truthful. Posidonius, the truthful.
His account's not actually survived. Posidonius, I think. Posidonius, maybe. I don't know how you say his name. Posidonius.
Posidonius.
Possibly Posidonius.
Posidonius. Okay.
Anyway, his account didn't survive. I
Okay.
mean, which is, we're just going off their word of his account, so it's like secondhand information.
Yeah.
This is why the historians are like, oh, I don't believe that, because it's secondhand information. They're just copying it from Spark Notes, you know.
It sounds like conspiracy theory to me. We don't have an expert. It's just Julius Caesar.
I feel like Julius Caesar is like a pretty much like a solid like guy that you would want to go on his words. I don't know, like, I don't think he would be necessarily exaggerating too much.
Yeah, but if it doesn't fit the narrative of like Christianity bad and all satanic religions good, then it needs to be thrown out of history, right?
Well, yeah, he said that the druids burned criminals and prisoners of war in the Wicker Man structures. So these were structures made out of wicker. and to look like men.
Yes.
And there's coins sort of depicting this. So, I don't know. You can look at the coins yourself and see what you think of them. I'm sure you'll copy them up on... Here's a picture of the coins. Okay, there you go. And when these weren't available, the prisoners of wars and criminals, Julius Caesar said the druids went even go so low as to inflict punishment onto the innocent. So I think another interesting thing is the ancient Romans outlawed human sacrifice in the year 97 BCE.
Yes.
After increasing discomfort in the concept of human sacrifice. But of course, ritual killing was still allowed. You can still do ritual killing, but not human sacrifice.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to say about ritual killing, what you define that as whatever you want, but they were kind of like going against the whole human sacrifice thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I think the last thing I want to sort of talk about is obviously Beltane and what that name means.
Year after year within this happy grove, our fellowship bends thee for a space. Thy malevolence which would pursue us here has lost its power under these friendly trees. So shall we burn thee once again this night, and in the flames that eat thine effigy, we shall read the sign, Midsummer sets us free. You shall burn me once again!
Now believe, flame, which hither ye have brought from regions where I reign. Ye fools and priests, I spit upon your fire.
Wow. Prince of all mortal wisdom, owl of Bohemia, we beseech thee, grant us thy counsel. Be gone, detested care, be gone. Once more, we banish thee. Be gone, dull care. Fire shall have its will of thee. Be gone, dull care, and all the winds make merry with thy doubts. Hail, fellowship's eternal flame. Once again, Midsummer sets us free.
So, anyway, I want just quick question. So, May the 1st.
Yes.
Do you know why this day is significant in terms of communism?
Yeah, it's the day that communism was founded. It's also the day the Illuminati was founded. It was May 1st, 1776.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, May Day is known as Workers' Day or International Workers' Day.
Yep.
So, how... I don't know about you, but that's just odd. We have May Day being the festival of Beltane, and also being the festival of...
Yep, Beltane Fire Festival and Illuminati Founding Day.
And
same day.
Communism.
And that's like legit. You can look that up. The Illuminati was an actual thing. They were actually founded in 1776 in Bavaria, Germany.
I don't know. I've seen Wikipedia things will pop up.
Wikipedia will confirm this.
It will pop up underneath.
They will confirm this.
So anyway, Beltane. Now, it could be the fires of Bel.
Baal.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is Saturn.
Bull, the god of sun and sacrifice.
Yes.
Or is Beltane a reference to Belenus? That's Blenus, which is the master of power. Or is it Bile, who is the father of gods and mans associated with mortality? So, or is it Bull?
I think it's Baal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People might not know who we're talking about, so I thought, over to you. You probably know a little bit more about Baal.
Yeah, it's like the Mesopotamian god that's depicted like in all these different ways. Basically, it's Saturn.
One where you have the babies being sacrificed to.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be Baal. Right.
Yeah.
In like the ancient world, absolutely. Yeah.
So I mean it's like Mesopotamia. It's like Phoenicians, so it's quite a distance away from like
Summer Isle. Yeah.
Well, it's obviously a distance away from the Summer Isle, but I mean Beltane is a
Celtic tradition.
A Celtic tradition, which is obviously like France and Britain and Germany, so European. So do you feel like that?
I think it's been pretty much proven that the Phoenicians traveled to Denmark, and the Phoenicians were like excellent shipbuilders, and then they brought that same like information and stuff up to the Celts, like because they invaded. As you know, the Vikings invaded England, right? So, like, when they did that all that, like, stuff came with that.
Yeah.
Right?
I just think it's interesting that we're talking about, like, human sacrificing in, terms of May Day and Beltane. And obviously, the biggest thing that the Phoenicians are probably known for nowadays is their sacrificing of humans, especially children, which is like lovely. Obviously, I'm joking. It's not lovely. It's the opposite of lovely. But I just think it's really interesting that there's like there's a lot of first-hand accounts and archaeological evidence to back that up with the Phoenicians in Carthage. So, but then people are trying to dismiss the pagan and Celtic stuff and be like, oh, well, it was just Julius Caesar trying to do a bit of propaganda, make himself look good, So.
Probably.
Anyway, that's pretty much what I've got. I mean, like I said, I kind of went down it feels like all I've done is ramble on about stuff, but...
No, I don't think so. I think that was like really interesting breakdown of all that information. I would call it rambling, so very well done.
Is like anything that you want to add to this? I mean, I honestly wonder like what people think about the film, whether they're a fan of it, and like me, I was very dismissive of the film when I first watched it because I was expecting a lot more. I was like, oh, this is supposed to be like the scariest film ever, or like one of the most scary horror films out there. Like it comes up in a lot of different lists, and I think it isn't until you sort of like actually do the research into what the ancient pagans believed in, and find do the research into all the stuff that ties it together, and like look into the lyrics of the songs and look into like the symbolism of like certain like I said, the hair and
these different things, and you realize that they're abusing the kids, and like all these other things. There's a much darker underside than just like the happy singing and dancing they portray.
It's also like it's like a state of mania at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And it makes me like think like they're not taking drugs. They're not on drugs or anything, but they might as well be. Do you know what I mean? They're like
they're like all zonked out and stuff.
Yeah, they're like happy, smiley zombies, you know. I just think it kind of goes to show like the power and corruption that like cults can have over people. So I think once you sort of like realize that,
and we've seen that in the modern day, like Nexium and these other cults, right? So
once you realize that, like, then it becomes very disturbing, and I think it's one of the most effective horror films to ever be filmed in like take place in the daytime. And another like I haven't even mentioned about another film that I think we should probably like watch and is full of symbolism is Midsommar.
Yep.
Which again talks about paganism and is from the director of Hereditary.
Okay.
Which is interesting. Would make a really good sort of companion film to The Wicker Man. So.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. And we had some suggestions for our Halloween movie. So we had A Burnt Offering, and we had Logan's Run.
I feel like Logan's Run isn't really like a horror movie necessarily. It's more of a science fiction movie, so I wouldn't like say that's like a good Halloween movie.
A couple show suggestions. True Detective.
Yeah. Oh, True Detective is great, and that also goes into paganism and all like cults and stuff in a way. So, I do really like it when people suggest things. So. Make sure. And
thank you out there to our audience. We hit 500 subscribers, so that's pretty big news.
That is big news. I'm very excited about that.
Very happy about that.
And also, we want to say that people who listen to us on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts, we really, really appreciate it. And it would be like super awesome if you could leave us a review, and then we'd like to read your review next time we do an episode. So. Just consider to give us some feedback, and I apologize for saying like a lot, and
But seriously, if you go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review, I will go ahead and read your comment on the next thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all out there. It really does help. We're trying to establish ourselves in a very difficult podcast world. There's a lot of competition to analyze film, but I think we bring some unique takes to these films. So
I think we do, and I really think we do put in a lot of research and effort into it, and I hope people appreciate it, and I hope we also bring some like a new perspective on the movies.
Yep.
So
thank you very much for watching our review of
The Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man.
And let us know if you really want us to watch the awful remake.
Yeah.
So maybe don't put us through that, please.
I thought you loved Nicolas Cage.
I do, but I don't want to watch that.
You watch that one? Okay. All right. Thank you all for watching. Bye. Remember to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching Uncensored Cinephiles. Peace, everybody. Take care.